Good evening, everybody. It's 7 o'clock on Monday, February 20th, 2023, and we will call this meeting of the Sault Ste. Marie City Commission to order. Could we have a roll call, please?
Mayor Gary.
Here.
Commissioner Bauer.
Here.
Commissioner Bospis Rath. Commissioner Habusta.
Here.
Commissioner Marble.
Here.
Commissioner Miller.
Here.
Commissioner Rubenstein.
Here.
Commissioner Bospis Rath had a child sick today, so give us a call in advance. Anybody want to make a motion to excuse?
So moved that we excuse Commissioner Bospis Rath. Support.
Moved and supported. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? She is excused. If everybody that could stand, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Nice to see a full gallery this evening. I know we have some good recognitions tonight. And speaking of that, I have no comments or general announcements this evening, so we'll skip right to item B, which is proclamations and recognitions.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For these first two, I would like to invite the Fire Chief, Ed Miller, up to make a couple presentations.
Thank you, and Mayor, Commissioners.
Welcome, Chief.
Lucky enough to be here tonight to recognize a couple different people. The first one, I'd like to invite Captain Kevin Mohar up here. And traditionally in fire departments, we try to recognize people with some kind of recognition such as Firefighter of the Year, and that's what we're here to talk about tonight. It has not been something that's been done that I can find in our records in a while, if ever. So we're starting a new tradition. It's really hard to do this though because everybody is of value to our organization. So when it comes to pick somebody, we have to look at some of the things they've done over the past, look at their career and how they've made the department a better place. And tonight we're here to recognize Captain Mohar for that. He is our Firefighter of the Year for 2022. So a little bit about Captain Mohar, because if you haven't had the chance to talk to him too much, you probably don't know that he is a veteran of the Army in Michigan National Guard, so he has served our country and our state. He has been in the fire service, do we want to tell him how long? It's been a while. It's been a while. So we'll stick it at that. Starting as a volunteer in his hometown, Calumet Township, to where he came here to be a firefighter for Sault Ste. Marie for a couple decades. We'll leave it at that.
24 years.
Okay,
Almost
24 years, almost 25. So in that time that he's been here, he's also been a mentor to other firefighters. He's been a person that's tried to produce change, a positive change to the organization, and to teach people and leave things better than when he found it. And I think he can honestly say that he's done that. From my own personal experience, I was nervous about Kevin when I first started here because he always smiled. And I didn't know if that was like a devious smile or if he was just a happy person. He's a happy person, so that's a good thing. He made my transition here a lot easier because he was the interim chief prior to me being here. And that was his second time as interim chief within a couple years here too. So again, something that's above and beyond what was needed for him to do. He has helped me with some guidance and some history on the department, which has helped my transition feel a little bit smoother. And that was invaluable information. He didn't have to do that. So I appreciate that. So this year, Kevin, I'm very proud to give you this award, and I think you have the support of your fellow firefighters too. And maybe a couple other people in the audience, I'm not sure. So, but we're very happy to have you with the fire department, and thanks for everything you've done.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you. Where you want to- Right here?
You want to say something before you go? I think you should.
Just, I guess, first and foremost, I'd like to thank my better half. Without her support, none of this would be possible. So I really, really, from the bottom of my heart, thank her very much. And, it's nice to be honored. I feel appreciated. I'd like to, say thank you to the chief. He's done a lot. Thank you to the guys. It's been a rough couple of years, to say the least. So, but things are getting better, and we're moving on. So, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
You have to wait. Yes. Just for a minute. Our second recognition tonight is for Nick Kamers. I'd like to have Tristan Cooper, one of our firefighter paramedics, come up with him. And this was brought to me by Tristan, who himself should get an award tonight too, but we ran out of time and paper, so we only have so much time today. But Tristan's one of our newer firefighters, and him and his girlfriend's brother, right? I wanted to get that right, so I'm not saying brother-in-law yet or anything, no pressure. Okay, so we want to get the relationship right. I'm sorry, no pressure. And Nick was with Tristan over Christmas, and that's when we had that heavy snow, and they both heard that there was an ambulance that was in need of help that day. It got stuck in the snow. Our four-wheel drive one that got stuck in the snow, so, oh well. But they took the time out of their day and out of their holiday to leave their home and go help that ambulance, and Nick helped dig that ambulance out so that it could still transport the patient to the hospital and did not delay patient care whatsoever. So that's not something that people usually want to get up and do right away. Especially, we want to thank you, Nick, for doing that, and we have this certificate to thank you for your efforts and to recognize you for the extra help that you did.
Thank you.
All right? Congratulations. Oh, you want to get a picture? We'll get a picture after. Thank you. Can we do a picture? Thank you, that's all we have, but definitely want to appreciate everybody's effort and thanking you for allowing me to recognize them today.
Thank you very much, Chief. On behalf of the commission, certainly congratulations to Captain Mohar and Nick Kammer. We appreciate all of your efforts, and thank you very much to all the fire and EMT paramedic personnel that came to support them this evening as well, so, and family members. So, and you do not have to stay for the balance of the meeting if you want to get some pictures in the hallway. I know there's usually a look, yeah. We appreciate you coming here tonight, and yeah. And didn't need the extra chairs, but really nice to see a civilian commendation too. I was in a very large international city over the weekend. They don't even pull over for ambulances there, so nice to see the help from somebody. So we have a United States Coast Guard Volunteer Award and Recognition, and I don't see Captain Anthony Jones here this evening. Is Lieutenant Junior Grade Matthew Vieira here? Should we wait and do the next meeting? Okay, we will do that at our next scheduled meeting. Thank you very much. So we'll move on to item C, which is public comment. Does anybody in the audience want to make any comments on any of the scheduled agenda items this evening? So anybody in the audience? Yes, sir.
I'm not sure how this works.
Yep.
First time I've ever done it, but mine is about the St. Mary's Street possible
Okay.
what's up there in the water. I don't know if that's just the right area or not.
We will call on you. So that is G5, it looks like, correct? G5. Okay, all right. Anybody else in the audience that would like to make any comments? Yes? S- Correct, yep, G5. On St. Mary's Drive between Man Drive and Spruce Street? Okay. All right, so we'll move on into item D, which is the consent agenda. Deputy City Manager Robin Troyer.
Thank you, Mayor. Under the consent agenda, 1, approval of the City Commission meeting minutes of February 6, 2023. Item 2, acceptance of the Historical Development Commission meeting minutes of December 14, 2022. Item 3, acceptance of the Historic Structures Management Committee meeting minutes of January 18, 2023. Item 4, acceptance of the Police and Fire Pension Board meeting minutes of January 18, 2023. Item 5, acceptance of the Seal and Osborne Trust Board meeting minutes of February 10th, 2022. Item 6 is resignation of Mark Savoy from the Seal and Osborne Trust Board. Item 7 is consideration of the 2023 part-time seasonal wage schedule. Item 8 is consideration of First Amendment to agreement with Passport Labs, Inc. Item 9 is consideration of 2023 poverty exemption resolution guidelines. Item 10, consideration to apply for fiscal year 2023 Department of Transportation's National Infrastructure Investment RAISE grant for the Carbide Dock Easter Day project. Item 11 is consideration of a heavy hauling policy. Item 12 is consideration of no parking area on South Street. Item 13 is consideration to apply for MDOT's Local Area Bridge Program grant funding for fiscal year 2026. And item 14 is approval of the consent agenda items as presented.
Thank you, Deputy City Manager. Would any commissioner like any of those items further explained or removed for individual consideration? Commissioner Miller.
I couldn't get the PDF to open on my computer for number 9. Could I have number 9 explained to me?
Sure.
Excuse me. Number 9 is an annual process that we have to do through the assessor's office for the state. The resolution establishes the poverty exemption guidelines for anybody that wishes to apply regarding their property tax. It sets the thresholds. It's just taking, I'm going to kill some time while it's opening up on my end too, so.
Mine wouldn't open, I'm
They were
sorry.
really slow for some reason.
It just, it establishes the poverty thresholds for that exemption. It establishes the process, what a property owner has to do, as well as the poverty guidelines. So for example, a family size of 1, the poverty guideline is 13,590, all the way to family size of unit 8, established at 46,000.
Could I have that sent to me in a hard copy,
Yes, sir.
Robin, or where? Thank you.
Answer your questions?
Yes.
All right, next city manager. Anybody else have any other items they want explained? Commissioner Bauer.
So move that we adopt tonight's consent agenda.
Support.
It's been moved and supported to adopt the consent agenda. Are there any questions or comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed. Thank you. So moving down, we have no special orders of business, so we'll move right into F, which is communications. No, we'll skip that one. F, communications. Number 1, City Manager Chapman. Looked like about an hour presentation.
We got it down at least 9 or
Okay.
50 minutes.
All right, thanks.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Up first for tonight is a presentation. Chiming in tonight will be myself a little bit, but it'll be mostly City Engineer Dave Boyle and Wastewater Supervisor Ryan Masterson. So what we're doing is we want to kind of take a step back. I'm just going to put this on the screen real quick. We just want to take a step back and kind of walk you through some of the work that we've done and where we would like to go regarding the wastewater treatment plant and the SRF program. Again, taking a step back and giving you this information, I was under the assumption that a lot of these things were already in motion based on when I first got here, some of the staff reports, some of the studies that we've done in the past, some of the previous consultants that we worked with. So we just want to take a step back, let you know where we've been, where we're going. I just got to figure this thing out real quick. So tonight's agenda, we're going to review some of the infrastructure needs of the wastewater treatment plant. We're going to talk about some of the city planning efforts that we've been doing, some of them, especially meeting with Eagle since the last 3 years, and talk about the Clean Water State Revolving Fund Program and what it has kind of queued up for communities throughout Michigan for the next year or two. So with that, I will turn it over to the next slide on the near-term goals.
Oh, okay. I will take care of that then. So our near-term goals will be to get a project plan sent into the state for a CWSRF loan by May 1. If we do not do that, there will be no grant money available to us. We want to make sure we are in the best position to get that money. We want to keep moving on the CWSRF deadlines until the funded project list is released. And then once that money is released and they tell the communities what they may or may not get, then we can reevaluate from there and make a decision going forward if we want to pursue it or if we want to stop.
And just to clarify, some of the documents that Brian, Mr. Maston mentioned, submitting to the state for the loan isn't an actual loan document. It's more like a application to figure out how much we could get in debt forgiveness, or kind of like a grant for moving forward. So it's not necessarily signed, sealed, delivered, sign here, now you have a loan. It's more of like a grant application process moving
Correct.
forward.
So could I ask that you, maybe some of the acronyms you explain, there are some newer commissioners and probably some people in the general public watching that don't understand the mechanism for state funding.
So the CWSRF is the Clean Water State Revolving Fund. There's a Drinking Water State Revolving Fund also. They have different criterias, different timelines. So we're going for the clean water, which allows you to upgrade your wastewater treatment plant and your sanitary sewer collection system. So as you all know, we have a wide range of infrastructure needs. So this is just a little background of the plant. It was constructed in 57 to 59 as a flow-through plant. There was just primary clarification, 2 digesters, and then it flowed right to the St. Mary's River after chlorination. The last improvements were in 86. That was an EPA mandated upgrade. The city received $11 million of federal money, which is equivalent to about $32 million today. So that project made it into a secondary treatment where you added the RBCs, we got final clarification, and they added some buildings, new garage, worked on the lab, stuff like that. So the way you see it is what they did in 86, and I think it ended in 88. It has served the community well, but it is getting old. Most of the stuff has reached its useful life. The wastewater treatment, the wastewater collection system, we have a lot of to-dos in our NPDES permit now, and a lot of them have to do with the collection system. So we are obligated to eliminate combined sewer connections and sanitary sewer flows between 27 and 29. The collection system has significant inflow infiltration that impacts city's future compliance. So CSOs are no longer allowed.
And that's what we've been working on since the early
We've been working on
90s.
removing as many
Yeah.
as possible over the last 30 years.
Yep. And when we have a CSO event, I mean, there's a picture in it that'll kind of highlight it, but I mean, that's when raw sewage is backed up in the system and it's starting to come out either on the street, through the drains, or backs up into a basement, or whatever the case may be. But that's kind of what a CSO is. And then Brian mentioned it, we'll kind of explain it on the next slide here, but what is NPDES?
The National Pollutant Discharge and Elimination System. So every wastewater treatment plant has an NPDES permit. We just got our permit last year. It's good for 5 years. So these are what you're seeing on this slide are some of the obligations that we have to do by the end of that permit. So on or before January 1, 2027, we have to complete all sanitary sewer improvement projects identified in an SES report, which I am working on that report right now. I think we all know we have 4 open CSOs still, one east of the wastewater treatment plant, one west of the wastewater treatment plant, one here on Water Street, and then one over on Peck and Meridian. There's a couple more that are being taken care of this year. MDOT's getting rid of one up on 129. Where was the other one?
We're working on the Portage Avenue one stuff.
Yes, we're working with MDOT to get those 5 east of the Portage Bridge taken care of also. So on or before November 1, 2027, submit sewer system project performance certification work plan to certify collection system can transport and treat, the treatment plant can treat 25-year, 24-hour storm event. So what they're saying there is no SSOs, no CSOs, and no bypass at the wastewater treatment plant. On or before February 1st, 2029, we have to certify the PPC. So this language here is going to help with our scoring. We want to score as best as possible for this grant/loan. So since we have overflows and this project will reduce them, we should get the 20 points. And then we should get the 15 points for the compliance of removing those.
And just to specify, we're not under a consent order through EPA or Eagle, but these things are baked into our operating permit for the wastewater treatment plant. So they're not, they're still severe, and it's still important for us to meet these dates and deadlines, but it's not going to, it's a little bit different. It's not as strong as a consent order, but it's still something to be cognizant of as we move forward. And some of these things were actually in our previous permit that just expired.
That carried over.
They carried over. So the dates had always been in our operating permit. Obviously, we didn't meet those dates. So Eagle, we did a dance with Eagle. We got them carried over into the next permit, and that's where we're working from. So go ahead.
How close are we to the EPA stepping in, so to speak?
I don't want to say we're really close. I mean, Eagle acts as EPA's authoritative arm for the state of Michigan, and working with them kind of keeps us, as long as Eagle's happy with us, EPA is happy with us. But now if we really dragged our feet and we weren't doing anything, and we said we're not going to do anything, then EPA would probably step in and it would be escalated a little bit. But, as far as we're concerned, EPA is happy with us right now because Eagle's happy with us because we've been trying to get some of this stuff off the table and moving forward.
We have been making progress.
Yeah. So just as Brian mentioned, so the NPDES permit has a requirement for no SSOs, sanitary sewer overflows, and no combined sewer overflows anymore. And this is just some of the data that we have to track. So whenever we have an exposure, raw waste exposure out in the public, or whenever the wastewater treatment plant has a bypass, we have to, Brian has to fill out a report and submit it to Eagle. I think I've sent you all a copy of those before. We have to notify the health department, we have to notify the press, so on and so forth. So these are the numbers that we've been tracking. I would say with confidence that 2022 and 2021 are probably more in line than maybe what some of the previous years were. 2018, there just really wasn't a good lack of records for that year. So to say we only had one is kind of a half-truth,
Yes.
so to say.
I scoured my waters to our reporting, and I could not find anything except for one for 2018.
Yeah. So this is kind of some of the data that we're looking at in terms of bypassing at the wastewater treatment plant and SSO events throughout throughout the city.
Yes, this is both at the plant and out in the collection system. We have a handful of sites where we have gates on them where if it's getting too bad out in the collection system, we can relieve some pressure. And I still have to report it as a SSO or a CSO.
So going back to one of the criteria on the NPDES permit, on or before November 1st, submit sewer system PPC work plan to certify collection system can handle a 25-year, 24-hour storm event. Now, most people don't really understand what that is, so we have a quick slide here that kind of explains it. And I will turn it over to,
Yeah, I'll read this out. Mr. Hughes put this together for us, so. A 25-year, 24-hour storm event. A 25-year, 24-hour storm event means the maximum 24-hour precipitation event with a probable reoccurrence interval of once in 25 years, as defined by the National Weather Service. Chippewa County's 25-year, 24-hour event is listed as 3.67 inches. The 25-year, 1-hour rainfall amount is listed at 1.79. So I think everyone remembers July 29th of 2021, the city of Sault Ste. Marie received 2.16 inches of rain in 1 hour, with radar estimates showing 3 to 5 inches per hour in the downtown area. Total rainfall from the storm is registered as 2.4 inches at Sanderson Airport. While not officially a 24-year, 24-hour event, it can be classified as a 25-year, 1-hour event. The storm caused damage to 14 residences, resulting in $135,000 in damage claims. Wastewater treatment plant was bypassed. Street department repairs numerous washouts around the city. Sault Ste. Marie's all-time record rainfall on 8/3/1974 was 5.9 inches. The 6 out of the last 10 years have experienced a 24-hour rainfall greater than 2 inches. 2 of those years were greater than 3 inches.
so it sounds kind of like a made-up storm when you say it's 25-year, 24 hours. Sounds like it really doesn't happen that often. But we do have these kind of rain events, not all the time, but, you know, one every year or so. The two pictures that we have on this slide, these are pictures that were taken during the July 29th storm event. So the picture on the right, you all know that's your favorite room at the wastewater treatment plant. That's the screw pumps going up to the headworks. You know that area has about 2 stories of stairs.
There's 17 stairs total, yes.
17 stairs total, and in that picture you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 6 to 7 stairs there. The picture on the left side of the screen, that is an overflow from the Peck and Eureka area, where all this damage, a lot of the $135,000 worth of damage came into. Since then, we have put backflow preventers to minimize anything like that, but we still have these surges within the system that we're still obligated under our NPDES permit to minimize and ensure we can handle what's being thrown into the system.
Question.
Yes, sir.
Is it not possible that our needs could actually even be greater than, say, a 25-year, 1 hour or however many hour event if a strong storm occurred in spring or, say, in November when we've already got snow on the ground, because then you've got precipitation that's already there waiting to go into the sewer?
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yep. So we did, I don't remember if it was 2021 or maybe it was 2020, but we did have that happen in the springtime. We had the ground was still frozen. There was still a good amount of snow on the ground. A warm spill came in, and then it rained on top of everything. And the plant did bypass at that time. That is a common concern of ours every spring and every fall, just because of the amount of I&I that does get into the system and the possibility of having to bypass or flood out the plant. So that is a concern of ours. It's not necessarily, so we plan for what we can handle. You know, there will be anomalies that come up that we can't necessarily plan for. You don't necessarily want to build a system that can handle any kind of storm event that can come at you, because you're gonna design something way too big and it's gonna be underutilized. So the threshold that we are shooting for is the 25-year, 24-hour storm event. If we have the system that can handle something like that, we should be able to handle 99.9% of those events, especially what you're referring to in the springtime with the melt and the rain. And November does get kind of dicey for
Oh,
us.
this spring was a good example. I think we were so close to bypassing, it started to rain in 10 minutes we had to bypass. So it's just the ground was so wet, there was so much I&I, that 5-10 minutes of rainfall caused us to bypass, so.
Thanks.
Yep. All right, so going into the next slide on project needs.
So our project needs are obvious. We need some work at the wastewater treatment plant and collection system. We need to improve the wastewater treatment plant reliability. The place is getting old, parts are getting expensive for the items we do have and use. We need to address our aging infrastructure. But those things are going to help us score on this CWSRF loan. I mean, we should and more than likely will get the 20 points for the water quality improvement and the 20 points for improving our infrastructure. So our completed tasks so far, we meet quarterly with Eagle. Tom Asmus from the Marquette office comes over. We meet with Dan Beauchamp. He used to be with the groundwater and stormwater side. Now he is part of the SRF loan. We keep them updated on what we're doing, what we have coming down the pipe, what needs to be done. Those meetings are usually very productive, and Tom seems to leave happy with what we are doing so far. Also with the RFQ that we put out and hired Donahue to do, they provided us a review and assessment of our wastewater treatment plant and collection system, and that is what we use to put in our intent to apply.
All right.
Your turn, Dave.
It's up to me now, huh? Okay, so we're always looking for money. So we're always planning and trying to figure out how we're gonna get some money. So Brian just mentioned a few things. With the collection system in the plant, the best money is SRF funding. So that's what we wanted to do. But one of the issues that we had to try to get this funding is we didn't have an assessment done. So that was one of our first items of business that we needed to do. So to make sure that we were still in line to maybe get paid for this kind of assessment planning and stuff, we went out for RFQs for engineering firm to do that work. And so then that lines us up, doing the QBS lines us up so that we can use that, use whatever money that we spent there, hopefully, and put it in our overall project in the future. So once where we're at right now with putting in the intent to apply is that we have to do a project plan by May 1st. And the project plan is pretty much a basis of the project part. It's the basis of design for all the items that we put into the letter of intent. So it's gonna be a pretty comprehensive and technical document. We need to do that because as part of that planning, we're gonna prioritize, we kinda already prioritized the items that we wanna put in, but when we get more technically into it and we look into more of the money, some of them might come up, some of them might go down. So those are the type of things we'll be looking with the project plan. So submitting this project plan we're not on the hook for anything. We're just putting it in so that DEQ can run through all their magic and try to figure out how much money they're gonna give us, or loan us, or forgive us for, so. So, but if we do, if we do, you know, if we get to that point and we don't wanna pursue anything, it's not money that's thrown out because the plan we can still use in the future. We can use it for SRF next year or the year after. But this year we're looking at it because it's there's a lot of money that's available for our type of a community.
Yeah, I would just say, as much as Dave said that he looks for money, which he does, there's not a lot of grant opportunities for wastewater collection systems anymore. A lot of that was in the EPA program, and now they have rolled into this state revolving fund type of model. Now, there's been an infusion of money from some other sources as of lately, and we'll get into that a little bit more, but, you know, there's just not a lot of other grant type of opportunities for stuff like this.
Right. Okay. Just a quick thing on QBS, qualification-based selection, because this will keep coming up if we keep going along in this process. So as part of the SRF funding back in 2014, they made this a requirement. So we have to go out, we do RFQs, we go out, we try to pick the best qualified engineering firm or bonding firm or whatever that we're gonna use for this to do it. And hopefully we get at least we'll get 3 qualified firms that we can review. When we pick the top one, that's who we have to negotiate a contract with. And this is all negotiated contracts. So go to the next slide here, Bonnie. Here's just a few frequently asked questions that kind of pick some just based on comments and stuff from the last one. But if we do the QBS, can cost be used to evaluate qualification statement submitted? No, it can't. We can't interject money. How is compliance with QBS processed and documented? Well, as part of our application, our loan stuff, we'll have to fill out a form, but then we also have to submit our RFQ, all the qualification packets. We'll have to, our scoring sheets, we'll have to submit everything. Does Michigan have a required QBS process? No, they don't, but because of this program, we'll rely on the federal statute, which is the Brooks Act. Is there a sole source provision in the legislation? No, for this stuff we have to do the QBS,
So it's just a little bit different. I mean, typically what we do is a request for proposals where we'd send out a service, they'd give us a price with their qualifications. This one's a little bit different in the sense that it kind of takes the price out. So the process that we are mandated to follow is a qualifications-based selection. So like Dave was saying, we would send out a request for qualifications, RFQ. Firms would apply, much like an application process. Staff would go through them, meet with them, rate them, and then upon their rating scale, whoever's the most qualified, they negotiate a contract with. So it's a little bit different in the sense it's not the normal RFP type of process that we're all used to.
Okay, Bonnie, next slide. Okay, so just a little background on why we picked Donahue for where we're at right now. Donahue is one of the larger wastewater treatment plant consultants, so they're like number 19 in the state. But the thing that we liked about them is that they've had a lot of experience in Michigan. They've had a lot of experience with our size plant, and they've had a lot of experience with Eagle. So that was big pluses for us. Next one, Bonnie. Right now, they're at about $2 billion in wastewater infrastructure that they've designed. So, and the majority of that has been with SRF program. And so they got 25 years plus here in Michigan, you know, working and navigating with state and federal funding, and right now they're actively managing multiple SRF loans in Michigan. Okay, so where do we need to go next? Well, we need to do this, with them, we wanted to do a condition assessment on the plant so that we could use it going forward with our SRF funding. So what did we include in there? We inventoried all the assets at the plant. We documented the assets and the conditions and consequences of failure. So the little box over there, it's hard to explain, I don't want to do that, but this is, all these items are
But it
all
looks
played.
really cool.
It's an engineering thing. Okay, so then we established all the replacement costs, and then we developed a prioritized repair and replacement capital plan based on those conditions. And you've seen some of that. I mean, we're up to, what was the total, 67 million? 58 million, okay, yeah. So, and then part of their work that they did for us and a requirement of the SRF was to update our asset management plan. We did have an asset management plan on record with Eagle, but they helped us out and took that and we brought it to the next level. So we've got that all submitted and it's been all put in and approved. Oh, you're next.
Turn again, eh? So the planned improvements at the wastewater treatment plant, they're broken into two different categories: sustainability and aging infrastructure, and then regulatory improvements. So the sustainability and aging infrastructures, we have obviously preliminary treatment improvements. Our bar screen grit removal is mediocre at best. Secondary treatment improvements, a lot of our RBCs are down. They're missing media. The bearings are, the shafts are bad. I mean, we have bearings, but you can't put a new bearing on a bad shaft. And I found some companies to come in and try to fix them, but they want $50,000, $60,000 to machine a shaft on one of those.
And what's a new one cost?
A new one is probably close to $1 million, but you also would be machining a shaft on a RBC that has half the media on it. I don't want to say it's not worth it, because it is worth it, but they're in tough shape. We have 3 or 4 that they're worn right out. We purchased 12 bearings and have replaced 4 or 5, so we're doing the best we can with it, but they do need some attention. Anaerobic digestion improvements. The roofs are missing insulation. The mixing is poor. We can only mix one at a time. Cleaning them has helped immensely. We did that a couple years ago, and that, like I said, that's helped a lot, but they still need a lot of attention. And then site electrical and INC improvements. Our electrical is some from the 50s, some from the 80s. That needs to be brought up to code again. And then the regulatory improvements, our disinfection system needs some attention. And then eliminate the in-plant bypassing. That's part of the MPDS permit that we talked about earlier. So here are some of this is what Donahue put together, and I think you all seen this in that document that Donahue sent out to everyone. I'll just run through it quick. We prioritized them as 1 and 2. That was very difficult to do because everything, in my opinion, is a 1, but we did the best we could.
Oops, sorry.
Oh, you're all right. And then these are the planned improvements for the collection system. Number 1 was in our ITA. And then the next two, and then the last one would be future projects.
Any questions so far?
So the project planning document that we would like to get done, it would perform condition assessments. Basically what Dave was saying, just a lot of the requirements, taking care of that stuff to get to that scoring phase, to see what kind of money is available to the city. Like Dave said and Mr. Chapman said, that there's potential of up to $20 million of debt forgiveness this year. Completing this project plan will get us to find out what is available to us. We do have a high probability of scoring well. Just Dave and I and Kirk and Donahue going through the state's scoring criteria, we should do very well. We should be close to that 80, 85 mark out of 100. Once the scoring is complete and that list is released, we will have a better understanding of what is being offered to the city. And therefore, after that, we will come back to you guys and see how we would like to proceed.
Quick. Okay, just some couple of quick slides just to show you why we really want to keep this process going. So ARPA, you know, everybody's heard of ARPA funds. They interjected a bunch of money into the SRF last year. So probably for last year, this year, and the following year, there's a bunch of additional money. That's why we're looking at some big grant or forgiveness amounts. So the last time that this happened was back in the early 70s through the late 90s was when EPA was giving out money. And at that time, it was 75% or 55% for the communities. So ever since the 90s, we haven't really had, all we've had is the SRF funding, you know, and it's there most of the time. You got a little bit of grant forgiveness, and most of it was loan. Now we could be possibly looking at 50-50 here. So, I mean, we could, for our grant, and then 50 for our loan. Go ahead, next one, Bonnie. Just examples, because last year, you know, we didn't get in on this because we weren't lined up with the tools that we needed to make the submittals. But last year, just for examples here in the UP, Marquette put in a project for $12 million, and they got a grant of $6 million. And then Gogebic Iron Wastewater Authority, they put in a project for $25 million, and they're receiving the $20 million grant forgiveness. So they were on we're overburdened, they were super overburdened. So that's why they got so much relief last year. But we're open to get into the Marquette range here with an overburden, so 50-50 is what we're hoping for. Okay, so this is what the program looks like this year, and the city has used FRS funding all throughout the CSO projects in the last 30 years. Just that haven't had a program come up like this. That the rates are going to be good. The 20-year rate is 1.875, and then. You know, if we do get our, and that's at 20 years, and if we do put in the collection system component, we could possibly go to 30 years at that 1.875. So the open market right now is about 4% or more. So that's good. So then we get back, you know, so we're looking for, the big thing we're looking for is that principal forgiveness, 50%. So We put in our paperwork last week to see where we are. We're pretty sure we're gonna come back in as overburden, and we're not gonna get to the super overburden because we just have too affluent of a community. But if we do come in at that, we get 20 points for that scoring. That helps us get up to the 80, 85 points, so that's good for us. All right, you're up again.
So this next slide, 2 and 3 are backwards. I made a mistake there. So 2 is actually Eagle Project Priority List establishing funding opportunities, and 3 would be the commission decision and the QBS process for engineering services. So this is just a brief timeline of what would happen if we do hand in a May 1 project planning document. July to September would be the funding list release from Eagle. After that, we would come back to the commission for a project scope and QBS selection if we so choose. If we do, engineering plan submitted by May 2024 with a loan closing of August 2024. This would be a 5-year project plan. No obligation to execute the projects. Like we've said numerous times, 2024 has a great opportunity for grant dollars. Future principal forgiveness is uncertain, and the future judgment on user rates and bond expiring is unknown at this time. So as you can see, just a brief 2024 would be collection system repair and replacement at the plant, preliminary treatment and disinfection, and then so far and so on. So the next steps we need to do is plan for a project plan document at your next meeting on March 6th. If we decide to go that way, you can see early April, the draft would be done. Public notice the first week of April, and then public meeting and resolution at the April 17th meeting, and then submit by May 1.
So one of the things I just want to highlight, we didn't mention it too much, so with this timeline, even though we're still trying to move forward with this, there's still several decision points that the commission would have as we move along with this time frame. So like we said, if we put in a project plan in May, this summer when the projects get released and we find out how much loan and or grant that we're available for, at that point, we would put together a project, come to the commission and say, this is what we're eligible for, this is what we think we should do, this is what we think we should finance, and then what the impact on the rates can be. And we're really cognizant right now with where we're at with our debt schedule. There is some light at the end of the tunnel because some of the older CSO debt that's been on the books for a long time is starting to expire. So we would trying to tie up any future debt needs for future projects to coincide with as existing debt is starting to retire. So we're not necessarily taking on anything new, we would just be replacing it as we should move forward, get other projects done too.
And if you keep, if we did a loan right away, there wouldn't be a large payment due immediately. It would be once the project is closed out, which we could, that could be 5 to 6 years from now. So we would just be making interest-only payments for the first 4 to 6 years also.
Any questions?
I guess it's just frustrating because we don't know the scope of the project and we're trying to design something around funding, which is what you're not supposed to do, but you have to do that. Usually you design your project and then you obtain funding, so this is totally opposite, but I understand that that's what the government has done to us by putting out these programs, and everybody's jump into the well to try to get in there, so.
Do you remember the numbers from last year and the amount that was requested and the amount that was awarded? Maybe I'm getting that mixed up with the grant. Do we know that?
Yeah.
You can say we don't
Not
know.
offhand, no.
Okay.
Mr.
Yeah,
Miller?
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Why is there so much money this year?
So there's so much money this year because the state received a bunch of money through the ARPA, the American Recovery Reinvestment Plan Act. The same thing that we received our local distribution through. A lot of that money, I mean, it was a lot of money, but a lot of the money went to the states for them to administer programs for, and a good portion of that money went right into the state revolving fund programs. So that's where that big infusion's coming from.
Commissioner Busta?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Correct me if I'm wrong, last meeting you came to us and asked us to approve a professional services agreement with Donahue, is that correct?
Correct.
Yes.
And at the time, the commission took no action. Is the project planning document something that can be bid out, or is it a single source vendor only action?
No, yeah, so we're back to the QBS. If we want to take those monies and put them in our total project, then we have to continue with Donahue. Now, we're so close to everything. What we've been talking about is we would do an amendment with Donahue right now to get us through the project plan. That would be the next month or two. My department would help them out. And then, once we got the project plan in, after that, we'd go back to the QBS again, just so that everybody's okay with who we're gonna use for the bigger portion if we go that way. And then we could do it that way, so.
Thank you.
So you're saying because we already did the QBS project, whatever it is, process on Donahue, when they're done with this next bit of information that you need to get to SRF, then we would do a QBS for the project?
Right, yep, because
the-
that would be a good point to do it, because with the plan, then we would have we'd have a different scope of work, so the QBS would, then we could have that come back into play again.
So at this point, though, we don't know the breakout between what part of our collection system and which roads we're gonna be redoing and what part of the plant and everything else. We won't know what the rates, I mean, we have no idea of knowing what the rates will be or what assessments we'll have to do for roads, and, I mean, it's just wide open.
Right, it's wide open,
But we got 90 grand.
but part of
Do we have
the,
that sitting in our reserves, I'm assuming, and will
Correct.
be funded and won't impact rates at that point in time?
Correct.
So any of our actions now will not impact rates on users, period.
Correct, and what Dave was saying, if we stick with the QBS process, we can roll in, correct me if I'm wrong, we can roll in some of the pre-work we did into the final costs and kind of reimburse us for those as well.
that's correct, yep. And part of the project plan that we're gonna have, we have to do an analysis of the rates. That's the last item on page 38 that we have to do.
Any other questions? Thank you very much for your in-depth report. Appreciate it. Meeting late, but whatever. We'll see you at the next meeting. That was very good, thank you. Item G, business items, number 1, city manager.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Up first for commission consideration is a request to purchase a 4-ton asphalt recycler and hot box trailer for the DPW. The process was bid out. The bid tabs are included in the item. We would look for a motion to award the bid to Falcon Road Maintenance in the amount of $29,157.01.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions on this item? Commissioner Habusta?
Motion to award the bid to Falcon Road Maintenance Equipment LLC of Freeland, Michigan for the purchase of a 4-ton asphalt recycler and hot box trailer with options at a total cost of $1,157.01.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any questions or comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed. Thank you. Certainly didn't want to be the commissioner to vote against getting a pothole fixer. Item G, business items number 2.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Up next for commission consideration is a request to purchase a new lawnmower for the Parks Department. This particular motion, or this particular item has 2 motions. Motion to award the bid to Spartan Distributors, and a motion to increase the budget by $12,300 for a total of $87,300. This particular purchase was budgeted in the current in the current capital budget, roughly $75,000. Bids came back in a little bit higher, so we look for a increase in the allocation for this purchase as well. So 2 motions: motion to approve the purchase and motion to increase the budget.
All right, any questions for the city manager? I see that we're having some supply chain issues with mowers as well, eh?
12
So-
months out.
Wow.
Right.
Commissioner Rubenstein?
It's a long, 12 to 24 months is a long time.
For a mower, yeah. Commissioner Ubusta.
Yeah, just with a mower that fits within, there's a bid that does fit within our budget. Will that mower substantially hinder DPW's ability to complete the task that the mower be used for?
That particular mower did not meet our bid specs. If you have any other comments, Tyler, you can probably come up and say them too, but if they don't meet our bid specs, we typically do kind of throw them out, because in our process, we tell them exactly what we want and how we want it, and if they don't follow those specs, then we kind of move along.
The one that was under budget was a zero-turn mower, and just the type of ground we're cutting, it bounces around too much. You know, we're cutting fields. That's more of a fair ground mower.
So there would be an impact on our operations to a certain extent. It's not the best mower for some of the landscape that we maintain.
All right, I understand, and I appreciate that answer. I just struggle with adjusting a budget rather than purchasing within what we have budgeted. So I will just voice that concern.
And maybe some clarification, Tyler, if you could, or city manager, on how we come up with criteria when we bid out these. It's based on past performance or some of the machines that we have now.
The Toro mowers that we've been using for 2006 and 2008, they've worked well for our park staff, and that's how we typically would go to spec out what we want.
I had the same questions when I read it, Commissioner, too. I know, but that it was 10 horsepower less, I think, and had a lot of different, there was a lot of no's on the specs sheet, so. So you don't think it would meet the purpose intended for the parks?
And just the ease of, this new mower, it's still identical to our older mowers. So parts availability, maintenance-wise, it's all, it'll kind of mesh together.
Any other questions or comments? What happens when we buy a piece of equipment and this year we're not going to get it till next year, so it's going to be in the next, we just budget for next fiscal year?
No, these are set up as kind of a project budget, so they carry over
Okay.
until the purchase is finalized.
All right. All right, any other questions or comments? So anybody want to make a motion for the Commissioner Rubenstein?
Motion to award the bid to Spartan Distributors of Sparta, Michigan for the purchase of a Toro Groundmaster 4100D for use by the Parks Department for the amount of $87,285.12.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any other questions or comments on this item? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Opposed.
Thank you very much. Motion passed. Second motion.
Motion to increase the budget in the Stock and Equipment Fund capital equipment line item by $12,300 for a total of $87,300 to come from the Stock and Equipment Fund.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any questions or comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
I'm opposed.
Motion passed. Thank you very much. G, business items, number 3, City Manager Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Up next for commission consideration is the user fee schedule for fiscal year beginning July 1, 2023. Included in your item is the fee schedule, which denotes current fees with proposed fees. Anything with an X next to it is what's proposed to be changed, so just to make it a little bit easier, so you don't have to memorize every single line. Lot of changes to the user fee schedule. A lot of fees haven't been increased in a number of years. The cost to provide some of these services have gone up. The fees have gone up kind of with par with the expenses. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to entertain them, but we look for motion to approve the user fee schedule as presented.
Thank you, City Manager. Anybody have any questions? I know there were a lot of pages and there were a lot of changes, but they seem to be within reason. I did call and ask City Manager today about the Harvey Marina because we did have some people here at the meeting discussing that last year. I think, was everybody here, I think? And those increases were in line with what we had told them or promised them they would be. We did, I think it was half last year, you said, and half this year. So, and then I know that DPW has done a lot of improvements down at Harvey Marina and certainly are looking at incrementally improving that area since it is a good park. So I don't know if anybody has any questions on any of the others. Sure, Commissioner Bauer.
Just a strange curiosity in regards to the cemetery fees. And I see that there's, a major increase in grave openings. I'm just wondering, is there a lot of call for that?
I would defer to Director Perrin on this one.
Would that be an initial burial or is that reopening a grave? Initial.
Oh, okay, then I guess every single one.
Yeah, the verbiage was a little.
That was the question, really.
I thought what you thought, Commissioner.
So that came from my cemetery sexton. Fees haven't been raised in years there, and he said we're just trying to stay in line with the other cemeteries.
Right, but we're not opening graves that are already
No,
closed.
no.
It was really what I was wondering.
Fresh digs.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thanks.
Yep.
You didn't even have to get up for that.
Good question. Commissioner Hubosta.
Yeah, several questions as well as
Sure.
a couple concerns. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, what you just mentioned comparing other municipalities. When I look at this, I noticed that not all of our fees compare with other municipalities. For instance, when we look at our marina fees, Sheboygan Municipal, we are substantially lower. Sheboygan Municipal Marina is a rate C and, rate 6 and rate C, depending on if we're talking seasonal or transient. So did you look over all these areas, other neighboring municipalities or only certain ones?
I would not say we looked at other municipalities for every single fee that we have. More specifically to the marinas ones, we are aware of how we compare to Sheboygan. Mackinac Island has one. Detour we look at. There's a few of them that we do look at, and with a Sheboygan or a Traversy or something like that, we keep it a little bit lower because we do feel that they may have a little bit more amenities to offer than what we do. We do try to keep it competitive, but one of the bigger things I guess we'll say is we haven't raised the marina rates in a good long time. And last year we proposed a significant increase, and then there's another increase this year. So just kind of slowly moving up some of those fees to where they should be. I think for the longest time, a lot of our fees were under where they should be, and we've kind of slowly moved them up.
Thank you. In addition, what calculations did you do in regards to rate of inflation within these fees? In other words, we know that costs for us as a city are substantially higher, and many of these fees, while some went up, there are still many that remain the same. Have we considered rate of inflation in regards to those? Even as far as things as we're paying additional money for things like toner and copies and things like that, do we consider rate of inflation when adjusting these user fees?
In some. Yeah, and I wouldn't say everything's been, rate of inflation's been considered for everything. It's more of the, staff time or the materials time to provide the services. Some of these items, you know, like parking violations, there is an increase in those ones. Those ones aren't necessarily inflationary per se. So I can't say that every single increase that we've looked at has some kind of inflationary component to it. I don't want to make that kind of a blanket statement.
Thank you. In addition, one of the things that concerns me is some consistency issues within this document. In other words, in one part, to go to the clerk's office and get copies, it's 10 cents. But if you go upstairs and get copies, it's 15 cents. And I just am a little concerned about consistency and making sure that when we look at departments, we're not upcharging from one department to another department. And I want to make sure that we get that right. So I wanted to bring up that concern. But then my major concern surrounds upon when we look at park and management, we see significant increases to our ball fields. However, when we look at things like Polar Stadium, we see no increases. And I asked today, I asked city manager about increases to Polar user fees. They cannot recall the last time that those user fees went up. Now, we just heard a presentation last week about some of the needs within Polar Stadium, how that building is seeing some needs for some significant upgrades. In addition, I would mention that if you look at the finances of Polar right now, we estimate an income for Polar Stadium of $120,000 for both 2023 and 24, but with expenses of about $405,000 in 2023 and 2024 being expensive of $407,000, and yet we do not see increases in those areas. However, we do see it in other areas of our parks and in rec. I'm concerned about the burden that that is going to take upon our taxpayers. In others, you mentioned that we looked at things like costs going up and increases. Well, our water rates for our residents have increased for the past 2 years. In order to complete the task of Zamboning, I don't know if that's a proper word, cleaning, cutting ice, it goes through about 250 gallons of water every time you clean the ice. So approximately about 2,500 gallons of water a day to clean the ice surface, and yet we do not see any increases to the user fee at Polar Stadium, and that burden is bore upon our taxpayers and not the users. And I'm struggling with that, and I think as a commission we should struggle with that. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner. Do you have any comments or? No?
I mean, there wasn't a question per se, so I don't have an answer for it, but I would just say that, I mean, if there's a will for the commission to look at the Polar fees, or if there's even a direction that somebody wants to increase a certain percentage, whatever the case may be, we'd be happy to entertain those.
Those were great questions, and I think that the user fees were kind of sprung on all of us in this process a little bit differently. I don't know how many years back we had to, this was typically a part of the goal setting and budget planning, and we used to go over these things at great length, and, you know, all the I guess planning that you were talking about, all the budgeting used to take into consideration, and then we had to, I think we had to change it to earlier in the season because it was impacting the summer use.
So we've got, yeah, 'cause
So-
we've got 2 seasons. We've got
Yeah.
winter seasons and summer seasons. And like, for example, if we waited for the budget process to do the fees for on Osborne, for example, on Osborne's reservation system goes live about this time of year. So we try to get ahead of these. We do it twice a year. We do it this time of year, and we do it in the fall in preparation of the winter one. So we did kind of separate out that way. So it's just it flows better with some of our other internal processes.
Yeah, so I guess my point was, we are going to get into these things very deeply during the budget planning process, and
Right.
yeah, and you'll see, where a lot of these formulas came from. So I know it doesn't make it any better for tonight's discussion, but Commissioner Mailer.
Well, like you said, we're gonna get into this deeper when we do goal setting or whatever, but nothing against you, Commissioner Busta, but we had a presentation last meeting about how bad things are at the Puller Stadium right now, how the equipment is all over its lifespan. And I don't think raising user fees at the Puller Stadium when they have so many challenges down there right now would be in anybody's best interest. Thanks.
Thanks, Commissioner. Anybody else have any? Commissioner Busta?
You just mentioned two things, just to respond.
Yep.
Commissioner Miller, I think the concerns are exactly why we need to look at that. We cannot keep operating a building that is in significant decline with a decline in a totally inverse expense versus revenue, and be able to make upgrades. We have to have revenue to make upgrades. So I would just would add that. But also, you mentioned on Osborne Campground, the reservations opened in January for that. If we approve these rates, do we use previous year's rates for that?
Ani may have been a bad example. I think we usually do that one in the fall. Trying to think of another good example. The marina, yeah, the marina's a good one, thank you. Yeah, Ani might have been a bad one, because Ani is typically done before the reservation system goes on, but the marinas would be a better one. The marinas, we established the marina fees prior to them being open for reservations, and I'm not, yeah, because we probably start taking those the next, soon. Yeah, so that may not have been a good one, but.
Any other questions, comments? Sure, Commissioner Miller.
Did Commissioner Habusta get his question answered? I didn't hear an answer in that, I'm sorry.
Ani will be used, the rates that are presented on here, I'm just trying to find them, I don't think we typically change those before this, I can't even find them.
Not to put you on the spot, but he raises a good concern.
This is why I can't find them, there's so many parks. Ani, yeah, so we're not, I'm sorry, yes. So Ani is not being proposed to be changed with this, it was already changed. So that was a bad example, I could have changed the time frame. So we do it in the fall for Ani to prepare for the winter reservation season, but a good example of right now would be like the marinas in preparation for the summer one.
Historic homes.
Historic homes, baseball fields, things like that, more summer seasonal type that doesn't have a long lead time for reservation systems.
Answers my question. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Any other? Commissioner Marble, would you like to make this motion, or are you on the fence? Commissioner Marble or Commissioner Miller? Okay, Commissioner Miller.
Thank you, Your Honor. The motion to approve the user fee schedule for fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2023, or January 1st, 2023 for summer season fees.
Support.
It has been moved and supported to approve the user fees schedule for the fiscal year beginning July 2023. Does anybody have any questions or comments? I think we'll go to a roll call vote on this one since we've had a few other questions.
Mayor Gary,
Yes.
Commissioner Bauer,
Yes.
Commissioner Habusta,
No.
Commissioner Marble,
No.
Commissioner Miller,
Yes.
Commissioner Rubenstein.
Yes.
Commission pass, or, motion passed. Thank you very much. G, business items, number 4, City Manager Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Up next for commission consideration is a request to approve a reimbursement agreement with Cocosine Alberici Trailer, commonly referred to as the Sulax contractor, and a motion to amend the budget for a project. So, long story short, Cocosine Alberici Trailer is using the coal dock on the west side of the city. They need improvements to South Street to handle their heavy trucks. Being that that is something they need for their operations and nothing we necessarily need at this time, they are proposing to pay for the upgrades in its entirety, so long as we bid it out and we manage the construction project. So you have an agreement before you for consideration that kind of stipulates those terms. Cocosine will pay for the cost to rebuild the road up to a spec that makes it usable for them. There is a cap in it. If the project for some reason does exceed that cap, after the bids, we would approach Cocosine to see how they would like to move forward. So as it stands right now, there's a cap of about $182,000. Yeah, a little over $182,000. We feel that that should be more than enough to complete this project. So we look for a motion to approve the reimbursement agreement and a motion to amend the budget to show costs not to exceed $182,100 with full reimbursement from Cocosine Alberici Trailer.
Thank you, City Manager. Anybody have any questions? I'm assuming the city engineer couldn't have a zigzag map that they have to follow throughout the city to, then we can get all the roads done. Commissioner Miller.
The $182,000, where'd that number come from?
That is a cost estimate, engineer's estimate out of our engineering department.
Thank you.
And I thought I read it somewhere, but
Commissioner Rubenstein?
I could be wrong. This is also kind of tied in with business item number 5 to some degree, or am I?
No.
No.
Okay, I thought I read this.
Any other questions? Commissioner Barbo, would you like to do this one? There are 2 separate motions on the table.
Motion to approve the reimbursement agreement with Cocosine Alberici Trailer LLC CAT to reconstruct South Street as detained and allow the city manager to sign.
Support?
Been moved and supported. Any questions or comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed. Commissioner Marble, second motion.
Motion to amend the budget to show the project at a cost not to exceed $182,100 with full reimbursement to come from Cocosine Alberici Trailer LCC.
Support?
Been moved and supported. Any questions or comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed. Our thanks to Cocosine. G, business items number 5.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And we do, just a reminder, we do have a couple of members of the public that want to speak on this one, but if it's okay with you, I'd like to give a little background before we open it up.
Yep, please do.
Okay, so moving to the other side of the city now, there's been a request for a private use agreement for a property. If in your agenda item you want to open St. Mary's map, Bonnie, you want to throw it on the screen for me, actually? Try to zoom in, get the right spot here. So this is the property in question right here, the request for driveway, private utilities. This segment of road right here has an existing private use agreement to which there's a clause in it that after so many utility hookups that this whole area needs to kind of be redone up to spec. So right now, there's one sanitary main that runs through here that everybody is hooked up to, but this person has an individual water tap that goes up here. This one has an individual water tap that goes up, and this one has an individual water tap to go up. Seeing that this property is close to the water main, We would recommend deviating from the existing private use agreement to allow this property to hook up to the water main as a direct connection. The property will hook up to the sanitary lead that runs down this way, and then move forward in that manner. One of the issues that we have when we were looking at this one, this is kind of the high-level GIS area. Here's the road that we're talking about. Here's the property. If you can kind of see, I know it's really zoomed out, but this is the property we're talking about. Sanitary mains, you can put a straight shot in and have people hook up and not have any issues with it. But if we were to require a water main be hooked up, it would more than likely, not more than likely, it would have to be looped all the way around to connect to another main. When you have a drinking water supply that dead ends in certain areas, the chances of the water going stagnant and not being clean anymore increase. So because there's not a lot of development kind of on the radar for this area, we would recommend amending or deviating from the existing private use agreement, which would require the full utilities to be hooked up, and allow this individual property owner to hook up directly to the water main. The existing private use agreement does have a stipulation in there that the cost of the construction would be covered by the property owners along that area. So seeing that it's a short distance and the cost to put in the water main and some of the other utilities just really doesn't make sense, we would look for a new private use agreement to allow this property owner to extend the water out into the road or connect water that's out on Man Drive. Yeah.
Okay. All right, and then we'll go to public, gentleman in the corner. If you could come up to the microphone and give us your name and your residence, not necessarily your street address, but if you're a city resident or otherwise.
Curtis Weber Jr., I live on the corner there you just showed, the end of the road. I just was coming to show my support for the proposal from the engineering department that says it should just get its own private use agreement instead of,
Could you please, sorry, pull the microphone over? Yep, thank you.
sorry about that. Just to show my support that the engineer, Logan and his crew there, come up with that it should just have its own private use agreement and that shouldn't impact me and my fellow neighbor who already own our private lines all the way to the corner. That we should have to burden that cost on a line that was installed in 2006. It's not near its lifespan. There's really no need for it to be replaced. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Appreciate it. And ma'am, if you would come up and do the same.
Jody Decker, Major. I live directly across the street from the property in question, and I'm not understanding do you want to raise my taxes $2,000 a year for 5 years so that she can get utilities over there?
No, so staff sent out letters to the potentially impacted residents just to give them a heads up on what was going on. We are proposing to allow her to hook up directly and not have to do any of that work. But the property owners, as it stands right now, is under a private use agreement, which does stipulate that if another resident was to hook up, such as in this case, that the utilities and the road upgrades would have to be made and the property owners would bear the costs for that. That was a private use agreement that was put into place, any idea, Logan? Early 2000s.
I've been there since 1998. The city's been telling me for years, well, since 1998, that if another driveway comes off of that gravel driveway, that it's going to be paved all the way back to Spruce. It'll be a street. That'll put me on a corner, which will double my taxes.
No, your taxes wouldn't be impacted by something like that.
If another road is paved through. And just, I know the guy that lives directly behind me isn't here, but he bought up all the buildable lots around us so that this could never happen. So I don't know how badly she wants to build a house there, but I'm sure one of us would buy her out of that property if she wants to get out of it.
Right, but we're recommending deviating from the private use agreement to allow her just to hook up waters. So those infrastructure upgrades don't have to happen.
Okay. So is that how it's gonna go then? They're not gonna have to do these upgrades?
Well, the
We have to have a
commission,
vote on it.
commission's gonna take it under consideration right now.
Okay.
So I'm assuming you're in support of,
I'm in support of
Not
not paying
having the-
$2,000 a year for
Yep.
utilities that aren't for me.
gotcha. Thank you very much for coming. Appreciate it. Commissioner Miller.
Could I see your letter that you had? Glance it over real quick.
All right, any other questions from the commission? Not seeing none. Commissioner Rubenstein, would you like to make the motions? There are two separate motions.
Motion to approve a resolution waiving the required public improvement on St. Mary's Drive triggered by the third PUA request.
Support.
It has been moved and supported. Are there any questions or comments? All in favor of the motions signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Commissioner Rubenstein, the second motion.
Motion to approve the PUA as requested.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any questions or comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Both motions passed. Thank you very much. That means she can hook up to the existing system, and thank you both very much for attending and commenting. All right, so we'll move on into item H, which is city manager announcements and updates. City Manager Chapman.
I have nothing at this time.
Boring meeting, eh? No mayor announcements and no city manager announcements. Moving into item I, which is matters presented by the public. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to make any comments at this time? So anybody in the audience that would like to make any comments? Seeing none, we'll move into item J, which is matters presented by the city commission. Any commissioner have any items this evening? Quiet bunch. Commissioner Bauer.
Your Honor, I motion that we adjourn this meeting.
Support.
Moved and supported. All in favor say aye.